4.35. Piranglio Prabhu, do you want to read this? Maybe Tanmay Prabhu, you can start reading.
Yes, Mataji, sure. Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Yajnatavana punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutani asesani yaksyasi atmani ahomai. Translation: having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Purport. The result of receiving knowledge from a self-realized soul, or one who knows things as they are, is learning that all living beings are parts and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The sense of an existence separate from Krishna is called Maya. Ma, not ya, this. Something that we have nothing to do with Krishna, that Krishna is only a great historical personality, and that the Absolute is the impersonal Brahman. Factually, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, this impersonal Brahman is the personal effulgence of Krishna. Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. Even the millions of incarnations are only his different expansions. Similarly, the living entities are also expansions of Krishna. The Mayavadi philosophers wrongly think that Krishna loses his own separate existence in his many expansions. This thought is material in nature. We have experienced in the material world that a thing, when fragmentally distributed, loses its own original identity. But the Mayavadi philosophers fail to understand that absolute means that 1 plus 1 is equal to 1. That 1 minus 1 is also equal to 1. This is the cause in the absolute world. For want of insufficient knowledge in the absolute science, we are now covered with illusion. And therefore we think that we are separate from Krishna. Although we are separated parts of Krishna, we are nevertheless not different from him. The bodily difference of the living entities is Maya, or not actual fact. We are all meant to satisfy Krishna. By Maya alone, Arjuna thought that the temporary bodily relationship with his kinsman was more important than his eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. The whole teaching of the Gita is targeted towards this end, that a living being as Krishna's eternal servitor cannot be separated from Krishna, and his sense of being an identity apart from Krishna is called Maya. The living entities as separate parts and parcel of the Supreme have a purpose to fulfill. Having forgotten that purpose since time immemorial, they are situated in different bodies as men, animals, demigods, etc. Such bodily differences arise from forgetfulness of the transcendental service of the Lord. But when one is engaged in transcendental service through Krishna consciousness, one becomes at once liberated from this illusion. One can acquire such pure knowledge only from a bona fide spiritual master, and thereby avoid the delusion that the living entity is equal to Krishna. Perfect knowledge is that the Supreme Soul Krishna is the supreme shelter for all living entities, and giving up such shelter, the living entities are deluded by the material energy, imagining themselves to have a separate identity. Thus, under different standards of material identity, they become forgetful of Krishna When, however, such deluded living entities become situated in Krishna consciousness, it is to be understood that they are on the path of liberation. As confirmed in Bhagavatam, Muktir Hidvanyata Rupam Swarupena Vyavasthiti. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Krishna, Krishna consciousness. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
All right, so this verse is continuing from the last verse. Lord Krishna, remember, Lord Krishna was describing how to approach the spiritual master and how we have to surrender to the spiritual master and inquire from him and render service to him. And then the self-realized soul will, the spiritual master, the self-realized soul, he will impart knowledge unto us. So this verse is describing the knowledge which he will impart to us. So it's described here, what is that knowledge? That the knowledge is that we are all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. We have an eternal relationship. And once we understand this, we will never fall again into this illusion. So Srila Prabhupada discusses this point, understanding the nature of the living entity, that he is a part and parcel with the Supreme Lord. There's the Supreme Absolute Truth, and there's the living entities, which are all his parts and parcels. So we're part of the Supreme Lord, but we're not equal in quantity. We have the same qualities, but different quantity. So Prabhupada talks a lot about the Mayavadi and impersonalist philosophers, because they have a different idea. The Mayavadi philosophers, they talk about how living entity loses his individuality and that they will become one. And they think that even Krishna, when Krishna has his expansions, they think that Krishna loses his individuality. They cannot understand the absolute nature of Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada quotes about spiritual mathematics. He said 1 + 1 is equal to 1. How is that 1 + 1 is equal to 1? Well, Krishna + 1 is still equal to Krishna, right? Krishna + 1 is still Krishna. It's no different. And then 1 - 1 is equal to 1. So Krishna minus everything, you still have Krishna. You can take everything away from Krishna, you're still left with Krishna. Krishna is not going to be affected. 1 + 1 is 1, 1 - 1 is 1. Krishna is the one, Krishna is the absolute truth, and he remains unchanged. So this is a bit difficult. This is difficult for people to understand in the beginning. You have to hear this, we have to hear it again and again, we have to think over it and try to understand the absolute nature of Lord Krishna. But the fact is that Lord Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, and everything comes from him. And everything goes back into him at the end of the creation. But still, everyone is eternally an individual. Lord Krishna has already explained that never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor in the future will any of us cease to be. So we're all eternal living entities. We all have our individuality. We don't lose our individuality. Rather, we do keep our individuality. But the impersonalists, Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, they're thinking only one. They think everything is Brahman, and everything becomes a Brahman. It's very difficult for them to understand our Vaishnava philosophy. So it's important for people to hear from the devotees. You have to hear how the devotees explain that Krishna is eternally Krishna, and the individual living entity is eternally his part and parcel. And the part never becomes a whole. Well, they could say, well, the part merges with the whole, but still we keep our individuality. Just like you go into a room, you don't lose your individuality when you enter a room. You still keep your individuality. You're still a person. You know, all the members of the family may enter into the room. And there's the mother, the father, the children, like that. There's so many individuals. They're all individuals. It's not like they all become the room and lose their individuality. They're eternally individuals. So this has to be understood. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When we talk about, when we say God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Absolute Truth, are they all the same, or is there a distinction between these, Maharaj?
Well, the concept of the Absolute Truth is superior to the concept of God, because there are many different gods. But as you said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so Supreme Personality of Godhead, we could say that's the Absolute Truth. But, you know, when people simply speak about God, there could be many different gods. You have the rain god, the wind god, the fire god, demigods, you know, you have all kinds of gods. So who is the Supreme God? You know, there's one Supreme God. So the concept of absolute truth is higher than the concept of God. When we speak in terms of the absolute truth, it's more powerful, more absolute truth. There's relative truth and there is absolute truth, eternally true. So this idea of the absolute truth, this is important for people to understand that there is a truth which is above everything, and that truth is also personal. That truth is not just simply an energy or a force, but it's a person. The absolute truth is a personification, it's a personality. So that has to be understood. You understand?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, I have one question. Can we say that Mayavadi's philosophy differs from Krishna consciousness in that they don't put their knowledge into practice?
Yeah, you could say that. You may have difficulty trying to convince them of that. You say they don't put their knowledge into practice. What is their knowledge? Well, their knowledge are saying that everything is illusion, that this world is all illusion and your individuality is illusion. You don't exist and I don't really exist, and ultimately we're all one, we're all Brahman. So you say they're not putting this knowledge into practice. Well, they say, well, that depends on how you are and how you live and what you do. You can't make it a generalized statement. You can't say all Mayavadis are not putting it into practice, and maybe some not putting it, but you can't say everyone. There are some people who do put that knowledge into practice, and they simply do nothing and they stay away from the world. They go away from the world and they do nothing. They stay away, just simply meditate. So you can't make it a sweeping generalization that everybody who's a Mayavadi, they don't practice their philosophy. You can't do that. Some people may not do it, may not follow their philosophy, but some may do it. Just like we have devotees, they also may not follow their philosophy. They may speak one thing and do another. People, it's easy to speak, it's another thing to do. And you know, we tell people to chant Hare Krishna, but how many people do it? Not everyone. Understand?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you. Their knowledge is not useful, yes? Not useful, not practice.
Yeah, their knowledge is incomplete, imperfect, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I've understood. Thank you.
That's stated, the Avishuddha Buddhaya. There's a verse in the scriptures which said, due to their imperfect knowledge, they fall back to the material world. Yanye chapapa yadapashra rayashraya janti tasmai prabhavish. No. Aurora krichrena parampatam tada patanti ado nadrita yasmadangraya. There's a verse in the scriptures in Srimad Bhagavatam where it's described that the impersonalists or the Mayavadis, that their knowledge is Avishuddha Buddhaya. Their knowledge is imperfect. So they fall back to the material world. Yes? Any other questions, comments?
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj.
Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. My question is Lord Krishna always the absolute truth all the time, for all time, eternally, forever and ever? That's my question.
Yes, of course. Lord Krishna is the Bhagavan Swayam. He is the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's eternally the Supreme. Not that for some time he's the Supreme and then he's not like in a post, like Indra, you become Indra, you're Indra for some time, and then after some time, then you give up that position. Or Brahma, you become Brahma for some time, then you give up that position. And or like you get some position as a Deva, a demigod, and then you give that position up and do something else. So Krishna is not like that. Krishna is eternally Krishna. He's eternally the Supreme Lord. And he's always the absolute truth. He never gives up that position. And nobody else can take that position of Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
That's why we say that he is, Arjuna said, Param Brahm, Param Dam, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam. Krishna is accepted as the Supreme by all the great sages. And then he said, Asita Vyasa, Devala, Vyasa, Narada, they all accept Krishna as the Supreme, right? They accept Krishna as the Supreme. They don't accept anybody else as the Supreme. And so Krishna never gives up that position. He's eternally in that position. And Krishna is also Anantarup, that he has many forms. He can take many different forms, where he will display some portion of his perfection. But as Krishna, he shows his perfection in full. When he comes in different other incarnations, he's only showing a part of his perfection. But as Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's Swayam Bhagavan, he's the original personality, he's the Supreme Absolute Truth. He displays all the features of the Supreme Godhead, right? Okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Any other question?
Guru Maharaj, previously I was thinking that liberation means going back to the spiritual world. But this is something very interesting, that to know that liberation means to be situated in one's position as an eternal servant of Krishna.
Yes, this is stated, they've quoted from the Srimad Bhagavatam here. From the second canto, it's described here what is the actual meaning of liberation. The actual meaning of liberation is that we should know what is our swarup, what is our eternal position in the spiritual world. Now, someone may be a servant, someone may be a friend, someone may be in the mood of parenthood, and someone may be in the mood of conjugal love. There are different rasas, you know, Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. So every living entity, their swarupa is in one of these rasas. So actual liberation is to know, to realize what is your actual position with Krishna. What rasa are you in with Krishna? And of course, all these rasas, we're always the servant. So we want to know our swarup. We are all servants. We don't know particularly what way we'll be serving Krishna. Will we serve Krishna as a friend? Will we serve Krishna as a parent? Will we serve Krishna in conjugal love? We don't know, but we know we're a servant of Krishna. That's there for every living entity. Jiver Swarupahaya Nitya Krishna Das. That we're all eternally servants of Krishna. Yes? Okay.
Yes. 4.36. Nitya, do you want to read this? Yeah, I think line is a bit noisy. Maybe have somebody else read it. Piranglo Prabhu, do you want to read?
Okay, I can read. Yes, yes. I can read.
Api ched asti papdeya sarvebhya papakritamaha sarvam jnana plavenaiva vrijinam santarishyasi. Translation: even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Purport: proper understanding of one's constitutional position in relation to Krishna is so nice that it can at once lift one from the struggle of existence which goes on in the ocean of Mesians. This material world is sometimes regarded as an ocean of Mesians and sometimes as a blazing forest. In the ocean, however expert a swimmer one may be, the struggle for existence is very severe. If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, he is the greatest savior. Perfect knowledge received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time the most sublime. Hare Krishna.
So a very interesting statement from Lord Krishna, that even if we're very sinful, we can be delivered by being situated on the boat of transcendental knowledge. So transcendental knowledge is something very powerful. Here it's compared to a boat, right? The boat that can cross over the ocean of miseries. Certainly a person who is very sinful, a sinful person, most sinful of all sinners, is suffering. Sinners are not joyful people, they're miserable people, they're suffering. But if you're on the boat of transcendental knowledge, you can get across that ocean of misery. Material world is misery. It's all suffering in the material world. So we need to get on board that boat of transcendental knowledge, and we can cross over the ocean of material existence. So it's very important for us to get the proper understanding of our relationship with Krishna. As we heard, we're all servants. Krishna's the master and we're the servants. So we're meant to engage in service for Krishna. The material world is not a place for enjoyment. So here it's compared to the ocean. Sometimes material world is like the forest fire. Here it's like the ocean. So either way, it's a helpless condition. If you're in a forest fire, we cannot put out the forest fire on our own. You need a big rain cloud to come and extinguish the forest fire. And the same way, if we're in the ocean, even if you're a good swimmer, they tell you, they were telling people, if you ever crash and somehow you're in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the sea, it's better not to try to swim, because everything is so far away, you will never get there. And you just become so tired, it will be no good. So you're better just to stay where you are. If you're in the ocean, you just stay where you are and hope that somebody will come. We hope somebody's going to come looking for you and pick you up out of the ocean. So material ocean, ocean of material existence is like that. We need to get the mercy of Krishna. We need to get the mercy of the pure devotees, that they can pick us up out of this ocean of material existence. All right, is it clear? Anybody want to go in the ocean of omniscience, into that ocean?
No, not at all, Guru Maharaj.
No, we want to get out the ocean, right?
Yeah.
You
So
know,
the transcendental knowledge is just to understand that we are the servant of Krishna, and and Krishna is the supreme.
yes, Krishna is the master and we are the servants. Everything belongs to him. It's for his pleasure. And our service is for his pleasure. So somebody's a sinner, very sinful. They do a lot of sinful activities. Very sinful person. They have to stop sinning, of course. They can't go on sinning. They have to give up that sinning. They have to feel very guilty that they're so sinful. And they should give up their sinful activities and surrender to Krishna. Not that they can keep on sinning and at the same time think I'm a devotee. We have to give up our sinful activities. So sinful life means taking something for your own, something which is not our own. We take it for ourselves. We think this world is for our enjoyment. It's not ours, it belongs to Krishna. So we have to give up that illusion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
Today one of my friends asked me that why don't we pray to Vishnu, since Krishna is also Vishnu. I don't recall the answer. The answer is something like because we worship Vishnu in awe and reverence. But if I don't know a perfect answer for the question. Guru Maharaj, can you help me?
Yes, well, actually, there's no difference really between Vishnu and Krishna. We explain Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and Vishnu is like an expansion who comes from Krishna. So originally there's Krishna, and then Krishna expands himself, just like you have a candle. So one candle can be used to light other candles, and the heat and the light in the other candles can be the same, but still there's one original candle. So Krishna is the original candle, and Lord Vishnu is like the other candle who gets lit. The first candle lights up the other candles. So Vishnu is like the other candle. So you light up candles. So you can worship Lord Vishnu. There's no difference really. as you say, well, Vishnu has 4 arms, Krishna only has 2. Vishnu is worshipped with the goddess of fortune, and Lord Krishna, he's worshipped with his pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani. Lord Krishna is in Goloka Vrindavan, and Vishnu is in Vaikuntha. So they're both in the spiritual world. Goloka Vrindavan is Krishna's own abode in the spiritual world, and Vaikuntha is where Lord Vishnu resides in the spiritual world. Now, Lord Vishnu, he is worshipped, as you pointed out, he's worshipped as a king. His wife is the goddess of fortune, and together they sit on a throne, and people come and worship them and offer their respects to them. But Lord Krishna, he's a different kind of person, and he enjoys intimacy and friendship with his devotees. Lord Krishna enjoys playing with them, and he enjoys also going in the forests of Vrindavan and playing his flute and calling the cows. And he enjoys dancing with the gopis in the night. And so Lord Krishna, he enjoys more intimacy in his dealings with his devotees. With Lord Vishnu, there's more awe and veneration, more respect given. That's the only difference. But, you know, we say also 1,000 names of Vishnu. 1,000 names of Vishnu is equal to 1 name of Lord Rama. So that the names of Lord Vishnu are not as powerful as the name of Lord Rama. You have to chant all 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, and then you get the benefit of chanting the holy name of Lord Rama 1 time. So that's the difference. Yes, is that all right, Jolie?
Yeah, that's good. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
All right.
Four 4.37. Vedapriya Mataji, do you want to read this?
Yes, yes, I can read that. Yathaidam si samido agnir basmasai kurute Arjuna jnanani sarva karmani basmasai kurute tata. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Perfect knowledge of self and super-self and of their relationship is compared herein to fire. The fire not only burns up all reactions to impious activities, but also all reactions to pious activities, turning them to ashes. There are many stages of reaction: reaction in the making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. But knowledge of the constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reactions, both a priori and a posteriori, are consumed. In the Vedas, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 4.4.22, it is stated, Ube Ubayvaishva iti tarati amrita sadwa asaduni. One overcomes both the pious and impious reactions of work. Sorry, Guru Maharaj, I couldn't chant the last sloka properly.
No, you did very well. Very nice. Your pronunciation is very good. All right, so Lord Krishna is continuing to explain about the nature of this transcendental knowledge. It's compared to the fire of knowledge, and it burns up the reactions of our activities. So Lord Krishna is talking, just like fire burns wood to ashes, so the fire of knowledge burns up all the reactions. And in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how it burns up all of the different stages of reactions of our work. There may be some good work or some bad work. And so a devotee doesn't think about enjoying the good and suffering. He doesn't just think only, I want to enjoy the good, I don't want to suffer the bad, so I want to enjoy the good. But Krishna burns up all the good and the bad. He doesn't want us to just enjoy pious activities. What he wants us to do, he wants us to actually do devotional service. But to do that devotional service, we have to cultivate the proper knowledge. We have to come to that position of transcendental knowledge. So the fire of knowledge, this knowledge, transcendental knowledge, is described the knowledge of the relationship of the soul and the super soul and the material energy also, everything, material world. We have to understand these things properly. And then in the purport, Prabhupada talks about the different stages of karma, that there's sinful reactions from the past, and then there's a stockpile of sins waiting for us to suffer in the future. We're all carrying karma from the past, and there will be karma for us in the future. There will be karma from our country. There will be karma from our family. There will be karma, not only, we could say, well, I'm only one person, but we take a share in the karma, the national karma, and we take a share in the maybe our community's karma. So it's a very involved thing. And of course, if you get married, you have family life, then you share karma, husband and wife. They will share each other's pious and sinful activities. Everything is related. No, karma is very complex. And it said that the head of the state, he has to carry what, 1/6 of the reactions of all the people in the country. So it's a very big responsibility to be a state leader. You have to suffer for all the sins which go on in your country. But if we're situated in transcendental knowledge, then the fire of knowledge, it can burn up all of the reactions. So this is the power of that knowledge, which allows us to overcome the reactions of all of these things. Just like that, the fire burns all the wood. And so then this transcendental knowledge will free us from the bondage to the karmic activities. Well, of course, we like to enjoy good karma. We think, well, good karma I can enjoy, I'll get good results. But good karma is also dangerous for us, because with good karma, there's also something, you may do something wrong in your good karma, and it may bring you a reaction. So you have to be very careful. You do something wrong, you're trying to do good karma, but you do something wrong, you get reactions. You have to suffer. So material world is very complex. Even we get karma without even knowing about it. Just by breathing, just by walking, you can get karma. Everything we do, there's karma. So devotee is very careful. So how to avoid all that karma? By transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge. Yes?
Krishna Guru Maharaj, what is the difference between reaction in the making and reaction a priori? Which of it is lying as a seed?
Well, it's going to take longer to grow, right? It's laying as a seed. It hasn't sprouted yet. But the other It's in the making, you know. Some karma is, you know, if you read the Nectar of Devotion, they're described. There's bija and kuta, and then there's karma, which is parabdha karma, and there's aparabdha karma. Parabdha karma means the karma we're suffering from at present. Just like in our body, we're all suffering from different kinds of karma. Maybe you have some good karma, that you're healthy and attractive and intelligent and like that. This is good karma. And somebody else has got bad karma. Maybe they're handicapped and they're very poor and no education. This is parabdha karma. This is manifest in the body. But then you've got aparabdha karma, which is not yet manifest. It's there. And in the future, we'll have to suffer. In the future, we'll get the reactions for it. But it's not yet. But then you've got stages like kuta and bija. Kuta is the subtle form. It's a tendency towards sinful activities. It's a tendency, an inclination. You haven't really got it, but you're a little attracted. Somehow you have an interest. It catches your attention. But the bija, the seed, is where you're actually interested in the sinful activities. You're actually developing a desire for sin. So the bija is a more developed stage rather than the a priori stage or the unmanifest stage. There's different stages of development of the seed of sinful activities and the desire to enjoy the material world.
Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Could you please explain what are the kinds of sinful activities for someone in transcendence?
Well, someone's in transcendence, they're not going to do sinful activities. If they've transcended the material world, that means they've transcended the modes of nature, so they don't do anything sinful. If they do something sinful, they have to come down to the material, down under the material energy. But somebody who is transcendental, there's no sin. Just like we say a king can do no wrong, right? The king cannot do anything wrong. But in the same way, somebody who is really transcendentalist, then he's not going to do anything sinful. He's not going to do anything. If he's actually transcendental, that is. And the sign that he is transcendental is that he's aloof from all material activities. So you cannot say what is sinful activity for a transcendentalist. If he's doing sinful activity, then he's not transcendental. Can you understand, Sri Devi?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. For example, can I give an example? Say,
Okay.
for example, like myself, I like quilting, sewing and quilting is one of my hobbies. So is that a desire?
I'm not hearing you, and your microphone went off. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now, Guru Maharaj?
Very faint.
Oh, very faint. You cannot
Now
hear.
better. Now it's
Now
okay.
better. So I'm going to give an example. My example is, for example, if I like to do sewing and quilting, for example. So is that a sinful activity? Because I'm going to enjoy seeing the product. When I make a blanket, for example, I'm going to have some enjoyment seeing the product. Is that called sinful activity?
Well, if you make the blanket for Krishna, then it's not sinful. Whatever you do, you have to do it in the service of Krishna. So you do cooking, you do sewing, you do it for the service of Krishna. You sew a blanket, maybe you sew a blanket for your family because they're also part of Krishna. But you want to keep them warm and you want them to have a blanket, so you sew a blanket for them. But you're not doing it just because they're your daughter or your son, but you're doing it because they're part of Krishna and you want to serve Krishna's devotees.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Now I understand slowly. I'm understanding slowly now. Thank you so much.
So the relationship has to be transcendental. We have to see everyone in relation to Krishna. And when you cook for them also, you're cooking for them because they're also part and parcel of Lord Krishna. And you're Krishna's servant. So your duty is also to serve Krishna's devotees, to serve Krishna's parts and parcels. Of course, you could say, well, my children are not devotees, so I'm not going to serve them. No. They may not be devotees, but still you serve them Krishna Prasada. You don't cook meat, fish, and eggs for them. A devotee cannot do that. You cannot cook we cannot cook non-vegetarian food for even for the family. We don't want to cook non-vegetarian for them. You can cook sadham for them.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, Vaishnavi, will we chant Hare Krishna now?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, just a comment. So if somebody is so convinced that they are a servant of Krishna, then immediately they are sinless. Like that, Guru Maharaj, because the knowledge, it's like that, right?
Well, they're convinced they're a servant of Krishna. They have to keep that consciousness, and they want to be sinless. They have to keep that consciousness throughout the day, throughout all the activity, throughout the whole day, the whole week, the whole life. They have to keep that consciousness. As soon as they come back to the mundane consciousness, then again there will be karma.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah.
And so we want to get out of the material nature. You don't want to go back into the material nature. So, you're a servant of Krishna. You have to maintain that mode of being the servant of Krishna. But as soon as you fall back into the material world and start to think, I'm the body and this is mine, my family and everything, then again the karma comes. Yeah?
Okay, we are not ready. I was thinking why then everybody should be sinless, right? Because we know that we are the servant of Krishna, but as you said, we are not ready. We think, and after that, we think that we are the body, we are family, like that.
Yeah. Yes, we have to realize this knowledge. It's not enough just to know, we have to realize it. So the realization part is important, right? Anybody can remember, I know this, but then how to apply it, how to actually realize it and practice that. So that's important.
So it will take some time, right, Guru Maharaj?
Yes.
We have to keep chanting and hearing.
Yeah, right. Chanting, here, purification.
Yeah. Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, so we're going to chant Hare Krishna now. Everybody ready? Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktabanda. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Or back to Vrinda ki.
Thank you, everyone. Next week.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much.
Mataji, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Vaishnavi Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.